People who live in rural areas of the States and Canada have a lot of ghost tales or tales around the campfire or tales of the devil or witches. And this is why this episode of the Twilight Zone, actually written by a very, very key writer, Earl Hamner, who was the creator and author of the Waltons. It really stands out. Now, Jess-Belle is an episode of the American TV science fiction series, The Twilight Zone. Now, in this episode, again, part of the hour-long season 4, a young woman whose name sounds like Jezebel, pronounced fast, is spurned by the man she loves, becomes a witch in order to make him love her. This is the only episode of the TZ in the Rod Serling incarnation with no closing narration, the keep with the theme song of the show. Now, the Twilight Zone has existed in many lands and many times. It has roots in history and something that happened long, long ago and got told about and handed down from one generation of folk to the other. In the telling of the story, it gets added to and embroidered on so that what might have happened at the time of the Druids is told as if it took place yesterday in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Such stories are best told by an elderly grandfather on a cold winter's night by a fireside in the southern hills of the Twilight Zone. Now, big cast here: the great Anne Francis, James Best, Laura Devon, Jeanette Nolan, Virginia Gregg, John Lormer, George Mitchell, Helen Cleve, and Jim Bowles. Now, this was in between Death Ship and Miniature, and got big ratings. Now, it wasn't a Halloween episode. Actually, it was a Valentine's Day episode. Now, in this one, Jess-Belle, determined that ex-boyfriend Billy Ben Turner and his fiancée Elvin Glover not marry, enlists the aid of local witch Granny Hart. Granny casts a spell that makes Billy Ben forget Elwyn and fall madly in love with Jess-Belle. There's a price for the spell. Jess-Belle will transform to a leopard from midnight until dawn in a very effective, special effects scene. You can see it is well put together. Now, Jess-Belle also feels herself growing colder and more heartless with each transformation. The witch explains that Jess-Belle's soul has been extinguished and she's been transformed into a witch herself. And the Jeanette Nolan character, who at first looks like a hag in the very famous transformation scene, she's by the collar and she comes up, she looks like, again, a middle-aged Jeanette Nolan, a very beautiful older lady. She basically tells the Anne Francis character, give them witches love. They said, and revel in your power. Now, horrified by her waning humanity, Jess-Belle considers running away from Billy Ben. His devotion to her remains unwavering, and he even gives her the ring that he was supposed to give to his former betrothed. But she finds herself unable to give up her selfish desire. They arrange to be married. A hunting party eventually, including Billy Ben, finds a leopard and shoots it, and it disappears in a cloud of smoke. Billy Ben then finds Jess-Belle's ring on the ground where the leopard had stood. Now, a year later, according to prophecy, Billy Ben marries Elwyn, but Jess-Belle is back. She reappears in various threatening forms. Billy Ben learns from Granny that to kill Jess-Belle, he must make a figure of her using clothing she has worn and stab it through the heart with silver. Now, he pays in coin and doesn't give up any part of soil to get that information. He returns home to find Elwyn has been possessed by Jess-Belle. Although it's an effective scene, the voiceover is terrible. Jess-Belle then asks Billy Ben to dance in the moonlight, which means she wants to kill him. He runs into the house and locks the door. He puts one of Jess-Belle's dresses on a mannequin and stabs at one of Jess-Belle's own silver hairpins. Jess-Belle eventually appears in a dress. Her eyes roll back and she disappears, evidently dead. After this, Elwyn does not remember anything that happened since the wedding, but claims upon seeing a falling star that it means a witch had died. Now, the hour-long episodes of the Twilight Zone were padded out, but this one wasn't. Actually, I like to see it like a longer movie. But James Best, best known for Dukes of Hazzard later on as the put upon sheriff. In this one, just like his previous episodes, and the last rites are Jeff Bertelbach, very, very effective. You see him in old the Billy Joel movie and other parts. Very underrated actor, pulling forward. Of course, Anne Francis, one of the most beautiful actresses of her generation, really pulls the Jess-Belle character. And Jeanette Nolan is always tremendous. And of course, she came back later on in Night Gallery as well. Now, the closing narration, again, wasn't there, but it was the words of the folk song that we heard throughout. Fair was Ellie Glover, dark was Jess-Belle. Both he loved the same man, and both he loved him well. But you see, it's a simple tale, but not a simple tale. It's complex in its presentation, and it's complex in its what do you call overall impact. Now, the story again, set in the Blue Ridge Mountains, was penned by the Waltons creator. He also wrote Spencer's Mountain, and again, he also wrote the Twilight Zone episode entitled The Hunt in season 3. Now, Hamner told Twilight Zone historian Marcus Secret that it was his personal favorite of the 8 Twilight Zone episodes he wrote. Now, the other ones weren't as strong, obviously, as this one. It was more what do you call final season filler. It was written at very short notice at the request of producer Herman Hirschman after another script scheduled for production fell through. I guess he did an act a day or so many minutes per day. Now, after being approached by Hirschman on a Friday, Hamner developed the story over the weekend and pitched it the following Monday. It was accepted, and Hamner then wrote again an act each day, delivering the finished script on the following Friday. Hamner also recalled there was no time for any revision because the episode had to be shot right away. Now, Hamner stated that Jess-Belle's original animal incarnation in the script was a tiger, but Hirschman told him at the time that tigers provided by animal trainers were too hard to work with. Hamner recalled Hirschman phoning him and complaining, "I'm up to my ass in tigers and none of them can act." Tigers, again, were bothered by smells while leopard were more predatory, so it changed to a leopard. The original intention was to have a black leopard to match Jess-Belle's black hair, but none were available, so Hirschman had to settle on a spotted leopard. Director Buzz Kulik, who also nominated this one as his favorite two favorite Twilight Zone episodes, recalled that the leopard also proved very difficult, partly because it had been drugged, and that despite the extensive precautions taken, including construction of a camera cage, it proved extremely hard to get the leopard to do anything at all, and then it tended to fall asleep during shooting. Now, the episode also includes Virginia Gregg, who was featured in Spencer's Mountain, Helen Klebe, who played a role in Miss Maybe Baldwin in The Waltons, and Jeanette Nolan, who played Rachel in The Hunt. Now, this is the only episode of the original series with no closing narration, and we just talked about that. As with many other Twilight Zone episodes, there's a link to MGM's Forbidden Planet. In this case, is the presence of the film's co-star Anne Francis, who also starred in the first season classic, The After Hours. Now, JP at the Twilight Zone Vortex observed, Hamner was likely familiar, at least as a casual reader, with classic and contemporary supernatural fiction, a field in which tales of transformation and witchcraft abound. Some relevant examples include Ambrose Bierce's The Eyes of the Panther of 1897, in which a man marries into a family of feline shapeshifters. Ancient Sorceries of 1908 by Algernon Blackwood, a writer later adapted for Rod Serling's Night Gallery, concerns a traveler who spends a terrible night in a French town whose residents transform into cats after nightfall. It was loosely based filmed by director Jacques Tourneur in 1942 as The Classic Cat People. The rise of fiction magazines saw such stories as Sax Romner and The Valerie of the Sorceress, 1916, which uses a witch from ancient Egypt and the film of a black cat to achieve its effects. Now, American pulp fiction tradition was triply represented by such tales as The Leopard Woman by Edith Ross, 1929, tales in which females either transform into large cats or are protected by such beasts from meddling males. And of course, the new Twilight Zone, in the mid-1980s, I think had an episode between Pamela Bellwood and a werecat. I could be wrong here, but I think it was a werecat, or it's a trope in many stuff. The idea about a pouncing tiger or lion or leopard, which is in the Twilight Zone, the jungle as well, creeping fear or trepidation. But the sexual aspect, the fact was, cats by nature or feral, not say are highly promiscuous, but their felines are considered very romantic. And of course, there's been cat's motif in Star Trek and all that. So I saw this episode late in life when WDIV in Detroit were showing this in the afternoon. I saw the unedited version, and let me tell you something, I was very impressed. You wouldn't think somebody from the Waltons, who basically was doing a lot of preachy episodes of the Waltons, would do something. There's never really been a pure horror tale in the Waltons like this. There's been thriller and trepidation, but like I said, again, 4 stars out of 4. But James Best, very, very underrated. I'm very sorry this didn't get an Emmy nomination. It should have. The script is very tight, and it doesn't talk down to the audience. It's just saying these are the way the people behave. It's like watching a Newfoundland or Nova Scotia folk story. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the latest on our hour-long episodes of Twilight Zone. If you like what you're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share.